trying to make the thumbnail. I dropped everything. I don't know. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Alyssa, and today I'm going to be talking about everything I made in 2022. So I'm going to try to go in order here, and I'm referencing my notes because when I started writing things down, I realized that I had made a lot more than I actually remembered. Okay, so the first thing that I finished last year were the magic socks from Wool and the Gang. I bought the 3-pack of yarn, which knits up in this really cute leopard pattern. And this is my third finishing out the kit. This group was the first pair of socks that I've ever made. Honestly, my tensioning was pretty bad. And so the socks are very large and stretched quite a bit, and I'm pretty, I've never worn them. I never wear them. I probably will never wear them. I was actually planning on giving these away for a white elephant gift when I made them in January, but December has come and gone, and that didn't happen. So holding on to these for next year, I think it's a good pattern or yarn for your first ever pair of hand knitted socks. It's super easy to follow, and because of the self-patterning yarn, it's easy to correct your tension. I don't know, it's fine. They're okay. Next, I made cami number 5 from My Favorite Things Knitwear in the yarn recommended. Honestly, the finished garment of this is incredible. It's gorgeous. It took a long time. This was my first ever ribbed project. I love the color. Unfortunately, I don't love this color on me. It kind of washes me out, which I wish I would have known that ahead of time, because I don't ever go to reach for it. The other thing about this pattern is the neckline. You can't really wear a bra with it, and unless you went for a strapless bra, but what I find is it actually shows in the armpit area. And I didn't knit tight enough to not wear any undergarments. So I would definitely do this pattern again, maybe holding 2 strands of yarn. I will say it was very difficult because you knit one strap and then another strap, and then you knit them, or you join them together in the round. I found that super complicated. Like, reading the pattern was really difficult for me, and I ended up frogging this like 3 or 4 times. My goal is for this year to actually wear this. Another thing is, like, I live in San Francisco, and so it's rarely ever warm enough to just wear a tank top. And I don't love the way this looks under other garments because it is sort of like a halter shape that cuts in on the chest. You know, when you wear maybe a sweater or a blazer, there's like this patch of skin right here, which I don't find particularly flattering, but my goal is to find some new ways to style it and hopefully get some more use out of it this year. Okay, next is the Harlow hat from Andrea Mowry. I did this hat because I wanted to learn brioche. I was really motivated. And I actually wanted a handmade knit hat for a trip that I was taking, a hiking trip in July. I made a few mistakes on this hat, and so that's why none of the ends are woven in. And I actually used some yarn that was left over from the previous year's West Knits Make Along. Overall, I mean, brioche is cool, and double brioche in the round is super easy to learn. but it's like impossible to fix, especially as a beginner. So I had this big section here, which, you know, if you're not paying that close of attention, you might not notice it, but I spent hours trying to fix it. I think the cast on was really difficult for this, and so I was being very stubborn about not ripping it out. The point I had made it to when I made the mistake was far enough along. I should have just ripped it back and started over, but the cast on really took a long time. And the mistakes are pretty minimal. Like, honestly, the tensioning is weird, but if you can see here, I think it's this one here. Sorry, let me get that out of the way. Like, one of the rows is just off by a little bit. So it's not horrible, but there are just these sections where the shawl buddy went in the wrong spot. It's cute. I love how it's double-sided. This purple color is perfect. I wish I would have made it a little longer, because then I could have cuffed it and maybe hidden some of the mistakes. But all in all, great project to learn how to do brioche. Andrea Mowry's tutorials are amazing. I highly recommend checking those out. Since there were so many mistakes in the Harlow hat, I decided to make the Oslo hat by Petite Knit for my trip. I went to a local yarn store, and this orange color really just spoke to me. I'm obsessed with this hat. I will definitely be making more. I'm actually making another one for my friend potentially this year. We'll see. I might rip it out and make the Musselburgh hat, because of course I need to jump on the bandwagon. Side note. Anyways, back to the Oslo hat. I'm obsessed with this. I wear it all the time. I think the construction is perfect. The way that this is knit up is actually really interesting. So you knit about 7 or 8 inches of the brim. Which part of the hat? This bottom part, you know, like this part, you knit 7 or 8 inches here, and then you flip your work, and so it's on the purl side, which makes the hat fold really nicely and stay in position, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, this yarn is so vibrant and fun, and the pictures from our trip are really, it just pops, which I really love. Like, I am typically an all black, very neutral person in terms of the colors that I wear, but for this trip in particular, I wanted to have like kind of crazy gear, and so I had a bright blue jacket that had an orange lining, and I thought, you know, what could be more perfect than a bright orange hat to go with it. The next projects were my first ever like real crochet projects, and they're both from 2 of Wands. The first one I made is actually this one, the field trip tote, which is very dense. It's a heavy duty. Because this was my first crochet project, I semi-followed the pattern. I'm really pleased with this bag. I modified it and added a little pouch seamed to the top where I could put my phone in. I really need to reinforce these straps. They're very delicate. I mean, they're strong enough, but they're pretty delicate for how much weight I put in this bag. I used to use this to carry our groceries home, which is wild, because like these 2 tiny little straps would carry like 10 to 15 pounds of groceries. I love this. We still use it regularly, but would definitely use it more if it had thicker straps. And also, now that I think of it, this strap is pretty short. It's okay, but because they're so thin, it's like quite painful. I would love to either make a crochet strap or get like a leather strap to be a crossbody, because sometimes it's just annoying to have something on your shoulder, and I would rather have like a crossbody strap. The next one I made from Two of Wands is the Portofino bag, and I am obsessed with this pattern. I also love the yarn that it's made out of. It gives me very much like the Prada beach tote vibes, which is so gorgeous, but you know, not very practical for me. I love this. I would make 100 more if I needed them. It's super easy to learn. The square stitch is cool, it's funky. The only problem I have with this one, again, is the straps are really thin, and I don't think that's a pattern flaw. I think picking up stitches with crochet was really challenging for me for these first projects, and so I likely just just didn't finish the straps correctly because I was just so irritated and frustrated that I couldn't get the crochet hook to go in to pick up stitches. Again, love this, highly recommend it. During all of these projects, actually, I was knitting a baby blanket for my cousin. So I no longer have that, but I'll insert a couple of pictures. That was a doozy. That blanket is knit in fingering weight yarn. And I made it huge. Like, I think most baby blankets are fairly small, but I wanted it to be like a little bit bigger than crib size. I don't know why. I will never do that again. That was horrible. Like, I just had to keep pushing through because I was not in a place where I could end it early. Like, it was too narrow. So it was really long, but it was not wide enough. They really appreciated it, and I was really happy to gift it to them and work on it. It took me almost 8 months to make it, which is pretty crazy for the speed that I typically knit. The pattern was nice because it was very easy to memorize, and so I didn't have to keep referencing it. But yeah, the fingering weight crib size blanket was daunting, and I know they'll cherish it, and you know, it's in my family, so I'm happy that I did it. Next is my zipper sweater from Petite Knit, which is by far my favorite piece that I've made this year. I get so many compliments on this. People are amazed that I made it. I mean, honestly, it's because of the zipper that people are so shocked that it's handmade, but I just also love it. I think this is the perfect, simple staple piece, and I love this chocolatey brown that it's in. This yarn is baby alpaca from Peru, and that's all I know about it because I got it at a local yarn store while I was there on my trip. One thing I would change about it is, first of all, I didn't gauge swatch, which, you know, we all have the same problem when that doesn't happen. It doesn't come out the way we want it to. But luckily, you know, the top construction is fine. There's no issues with the fit up top. I did just find that it grew longer after blocking, which is okay. Like, the sleeves are long enough. It has this really beautiful drape, but I almost wish it was more dense and warmer. One challenge I have with this, you know, actually now that I think of it too, I think this is when you were supposed to knit, I think all of her patterns you're supposed to knit them held two together, and I, for whatever reason this year, did not do that. I have quite a bit of this yarn left, and so I've been thinking about making another project with it, and I will definitely hold that two together, or maybe even incorporate a mohair so it doesn't grow, like, lengthen as much. Anyways, I highly recommend this. It's so easy. Once you get past the zipper part, it's just stockinette in the round. I also love the double knitted collar, and I think it's in twisted rib, which this was my first time doing a twisted rib. I love it. Everything that is ribbed now for me is going to be twisted rib. I love how much tighter it makes it look and how much neater it is. But like I said, I'm obsessed with this. The next project is the West Knits Shawlography Mystery Knit Along. This is my second year doing the Mystery Knit Along. I love the idea of it. I think it's really fun. I love the community aspect of it. I will say though that I don't love this year's pattern as much as I did last year's. I am obsessed with this Jacob's Ladder portion. I think especially in the yarn that I used, it looks really cool. But this is what I want to be the star of the show when I wear a shawl. And honestly, like the way it makes sense most to wear it is with this part in the back. And then, you know, when you wrap everything around it, it's just kind of hidden. And I don't know, this is kind of like how I think I would wear it if I wore it. But there are a handful of aspects of it that I don't love, and for that reason I'm out.
I'm out.
That I don't love, and for that reason I'm going to frog this, and I'm just waited until I filmed this to show it off because this is really nice yarn from a local yarn store that I love, and I just don't want it to be in a project that I'm never going to wear. It's been tucked in a drawer since I finished it, so I will be frogging it. But I'm thinking I might keep this Jacob's Ladder portion because one, holy cannoli. This took me like an entire week to do this. I had off that week that the pattern launched, and it took me the whole week. And then I was like, I need a break for a while. So, you know, this is really the star of the show. It's so cool and funky. So I'm not sure what I can do with this. I don't know. I'm not gonna rip it out, like I said, but I don't really know what I would end up doing with it. And then it has these wedge sections, which are cool. I was way under yarn. Like this white here is actually something I had in my stash because I ran out of this color here. I have no idea how. Of course I didn't gauge swatch, but I think I purchased the wrong weight of yarn, which I don't think is right either because the clerk was like, no, I don't think this is the right size. I think you need this section. Whatever, I digress. I also really love these cable waves, but I don't love the stripes. Like, they're fine, but they seem kind of like an afterthought, like how to fill space after this really incredible Jacob's Ladder portion and then these beautiful cabled waves. They look like waves because mine's blue, but I don't know, we'll see. I gifted the last one. This one's also really, it's so long. Like, I know you can't see the top of my head, but if I have this touch the ground, it's still like another 3 or 4 feet taller than I am, which is wild. So I will be participating again next year. I think it's such a fun way to create community and connect with other people in the knitting space, but yeah. Maybe I'll just frog this and leave these yarns for next year. We'll see. I'll keep you posted. Another project that I don't have to show are the crikey socks that I made for my mom. I'll insert a picture, but honestly, I don't recommend this pattern. It was really difficult to follow. It's impossible to memorize, which for a sock pattern is really frustrating because it seemed like a fairly easy project to take on until I started knitting it, and I just constantly found myself like putting it off to the side. I think I got the yarn for this in like November of 21, and I got them far enough to give to my mom just a few weeks ago for her birthday. Not all, the other part is you have to make 8 legs. There's like 14 stitches of fingering weight yarn knit in the round for these legs. It was so daunting. I started the legs probably 4 times before I actually like committed to making a full leg. And that was only because I didn't really have a choice. I had to finish it because my mom's birthday was coming up and these were part of her birthday present. So yeah, like I said, I wouldn't recommend these. They're so cute though and so funny, and like depending on how much time you're willing to put in, they may be worth it. I will say something that helped me a ton when I was finishing the second sock was I downloaded the pattern and then removed all of the information about the sizes that I was not knitting. So I think I was knitting the red size and basically deleted the blue and green size. So, you know, the small and the large. That made it a lot easier. When I was making the first sock, I made so many mistakes. And luckily it's like a crocodile scale. I don't know if there's scales. You know, the bumps on a crocodile, that's the pattern. And so mistakes were not that big of a deal because it just kind of looked like an extra bump. Okay, and finally, I think this was the last project or group of projects that I finished last year, was the Alpenglow by Andrea Mowry. This is my first ever color work pattern. And honestly, like, not too bad. I was a little nervous because this color work looks insane, but honestly, most of the work is done by the yarn changing. Like, these are not all individual balls of yarn. I made one modification to the way I knit the sweater, and you can kind of see in the pattern where I decided that. But if you're not a knitter, then for non-knitters, basically, there's no way that they would notice. But in this section here, I was slipping the green stitches before knitting the color work section, and I didn't love how small the color was. I wanted it to be much more in your face. And so then I decided to knit the green sections. And I love the way it turned out. I like it so much better. The color is so much more defined. And of course, I'm showing you the section where I added like 2 or 3 extra rows. You can see this big gap, but I'm also showing the back that has the, where they're lined up. But I don't know how this happened, but I think I initially was making the second size, and somehow I ended up with only enough stitches for size 1. And I was like racking my brain to figure out what happened because the increase rows are the same. You'd start out with a different number of stitches for the different sizes, and I knew that I had the right number of stitches to begin with, so I was really not clear on how I got there. So I just decided I would stick with size 1 for the rest of the pattern, which is fine. It's snug, but I was watching a video from another creator who said that over the last year, she's really evolved her knitting by making pieces that actually fit her instead of making everything oversized. And that really resonated with me, especially when I was making this sweater, because when I tried it on, when it was at a point where like I could really get a sense of if this size was gonna work for me, it fit like some of my store-bought sweaters. And I had never really thought that I could do that myself. It hadn't really been like a conscious decision to make everything oversized, but I was always so nervous that I would make a project too small. And when you're sort of making that decision, when you're reading a pattern and measuring yourself, like, okay, do I chance it going a little too small or just do the safe side and go too big? I usually go too big, which ends up usually being too big. So at the end of the day, I'm glad I went with the size 1, even though it wasn't by choice. I want to wear this to work, and so in order to do that, I need to add more length. And Nitty Natty actually had the same problem. Hers was a little bit too short, and she needed to add 1 or 2 extra inches. And so there's a really great tutorial on her page, and I've actually used it already for a different project, but in the opposite way. So she needed to add length, I needed to subtract length on the sweater. But I did it the same way. Basically, you cut it out and you Kitchener stitch the 2 pieces back together, and it worked flawlessly. Like, you can't even tell. It's amazing. So I will be doing that to this sweater eventually. I used the recommended yarn from Knit Picks. It was like one of the substitutes. I like it. I'll continue to buy. It's Wool of the Andes. I really like it. I will definitely purchase it again for other projects. I will say it's very warm. And also, it's just so fun. Like, it's so crazy and wild and like totally unlike me. And it also gives like such Christmas vibes. And because it gives such Christmas vibes, I was thinking, how adorable would it be if me, my boyfriend, and our wiener dog Nemo had matching sweaters? So yes, I did make us all matching sweaters. We all now have Alpenglow sweaters, almost. My boyfriend's is just on the ribbing, because, you know, like I said, I made the sleeves way too long. I had to adjust those. I ran out of yarn, but because I adjusted the sleeves, maybe I have enough yarn. We'll see, I'll keep you posted. His is exactly the same. This one's mine. I have the purple collar and cuffs. And his is this mustard color. And actually this mustard color is what I initially bought for my sweater. I have so much of this color. I don't know how, like, prior to buying it for this sweater, I have so much of it, and I was like, I do not need more of this. I don't want more of this. I want it to be something else. It doesn't look right for me and my coloring. So I actually got that purple from a local yarn store. But the yellow matches like perfectly with this yellow in the yarn ball. So this is his. He gets the better version because I worked out all the kinks of mine. Because I used the cheapest option of the substitutes, each sweater is only like $50 to $70 of yarn, which I think is really reasonable. Like, the quality is pretty good. I think you can machine wash this. I won't, but I think you can. And then the ribbing is so cool. I love this. And I've actually been thinking about making just like a full ribbed sweater that uses the same color changing yarn throughout the whole thing. I'll have to find a pattern because I'm not at that stage in my journey yet where I can make my own patterns. That is a funny segue actually, because I made an Alpenglow sweater for our dog. So the purple matches the cuffs and collar on my purple, and then this yellow is the same as my boyfriend's. And then the color changing yarn is the same that we both have. it's adorable. I cannot wait to finish them and take a picture. These will be our Christmas cards for the rest of our lives. But yeah, this is the first sweater I actually made for him with success. I tried in 2021, but I just was not advanced enough as a knitter to like ad hoc my own pattern like that. I think it's so funny. Like, I had to make a little hole for his collar, his arms. He doesn't love it, but you know, this was more for me than it is for him. So thanks for joining me as I walked through everything I made in 2022. I was pretty shocked once I finished counting everything up and writing it all down. I really accomplished a lot this year in terms of knitting, and I'm really happy to share that with you guys. Next up, I'll be sharing my plans for 2023 and the list of things that I'm really excited to tackle. But until then, I'll catch you next time. Bye. Bye.